Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunviditam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Śrī Caitanya Manopishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadahmayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Oh, wait a minute. Let's do it on Jamulus. It's nicer. No Jamulus. Sorry. Adadanaschidam dantaridam jache puna puna. Srimadrupa padam bhoja dhulisyam janma janmani. Vandeham Shri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Sadvatutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Namasheshtam Manamapi Shachiputra Matra Surupam Shirupam Tasyagrajam Urupurim Maturim Goshtavatim Radha Kundam Girivanamoho Radhika Madhavasham Prapto yasya pratitikipaya shigurun tam natosmi. He Guru Jnanada Dinabando Swaranda Data Kurunaika Sindo Vrindavana Sinahitavatar Prasida Radha Pranaya Pracharo. He Dinabando Kurunaika Sindo Guru Prasadam Mahimanda Mudhe Laksha Paradhe Bahupapa Gadhe Tatpada Padmestu Matishta Krishne. Prata Shriman Navadvipe Dvinetram Dvibhujam Gurum Varabhaya Pradam Shantam Smaritan Nama Purvakam. Tvam Gopika Vishwaraves Tanayanti Kesi Sevadikarani Guru Nijapada Padme Dasyam Pradaya Kurumam Vrajakanane Shri Radhangri Sevanas Rase Sukinim Sukabdao. Shri Guru Paramananda Premananda Palaprad Rajananda Pradhananda Sevayamani Yojaya. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Tinamine. Shri Barshabana Videvi Daitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Daine Prabhave Namaha. Madhuryojjvala Premadya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute. Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudhapa Siddhanta Dvanta Harine. Namo Gorakishoraya Sakshad Vairagya Murtaye Vipralambara Sambodhe Padambu Jayate Namaha. Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sakchidananda Namine Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate. Gaura Virbhava Bhomestvam Nirdesta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhoma Shri Jagannathaya Te Namaha. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Namo Mahavaranyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Goratushe Namaha. Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Surupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhaktashaktikam. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Jayatam Suratau Pangor Mama Manda Matirgati Matsarvasva Padambo Jao Radha Madana Mohanao. Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpadrumadha Srimad Ratnagara Sanghasanastao Srimad Radha Shila Govinda Devao Prishtali Bhi Sevyamanao Smarami. Shriman Rasa Rasadam Bhi Vamshivata Tatastita Karshan Venu Swaner Gopir Gopinatha Shriyestunaha 18 Thakur Godiyake Karyachena Atmasat 18 Charan Vandon Tine Moranat Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vande Nanda Vrajastrinam Padarinum Abhikshnasha Yasam Harikato Kitam Punati Bhuvanatrayam Hantaya Madra Balahari Dasa Varyo Yadrama Krishna Charanash Parasha Pramodaha Manam Tanoti Sahago Ganayostayo Yat Paniya Suyavasakannana Kannamulai Vrindayai Tulsidevyai Priyayai Keshavasya Cha Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namaha Shri Nishinga Jai Nishinga Jai Jai Nishinga Pralada Desha Jaya Padma Mukha Padma Bringa Yada Yada Hi Dharmasya Glanir Bhavati Bharata Abhyutanam Adharmasya Tadatmanam Shrajamyaham Paritranaya Sadhunam Vinashaya Chaduskritam Dharmasam Stapanartaya Sambhavami Yuge Yuge Manmana Bhavamad Bhakto Madhyaji Mam Namaskuru Mami Vaishyasi Yuktvaivam Atmanam Aparayanaha Sarvadharman Parityaja Mamekam Sharanam Braja Ahantang Sarva Papebhyo Mokshayishami Ma Shuchaha Shushrusho Shradadhanasya Vasudeva Kataruchi Syan Mahat Sevaya Vipra Punya Tirtha Nishevanad Shinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridyantaksto Hibadrani Vidhunoti Suhritsatam Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatami Bhagavatutama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Tadarajastamo Bhava Kama Lobhadayaschaye Chaita Eter Anavidham Stitam Sattve Prasidati Evang Prasanna Manaso Bhagavad Bhakti Yogataha Bhagavad Tattva Vijnanam Mukta Sangasya Jayate Vidyate Hridaya Grantishchijante Sarvasangshaya Shiyante Chasya Karmani Drishta Evatmanishvare Malihai Karishe Bijarupan Shravana Kirtana Jale Kare Shechan Tahan Vistarita Hoy Pali Prema Pal Ihan Mali Sheche Nitya Shravana Dijal Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga Shiksharta Meka Purusha Purana Shri Krishna Chaitanya Sharira Dari Kripam Buddhir Yastamaham Prabhadye Kala Nashtam Bhakti Yogam Nijam Ja Pradush Kartum Krishna Chaitanya Nama Avirbhutas Tasya Padaravinde Gadham Gadham Liyatam Chitta Bringa Ajanulambita Bhujao Kanakavadato Samkirtanai Kapitaro Kamalaya Takshao Vishwambaro Dvijavarao Jukadharmapalo Vande Jagat Priyakaro Karunavataro Chaitanya Krishna Chaitanya Gaurango Dvijanayaka Yatinam Dandinam Chaiva Nyasinam Chasharomani Raktambara Dara Shriman Navadvipa Sudakara Prema Bhakti Pradashchaiva Shri Shachi Nandanastata Nityananda Vatur Dhendur Vasuda Prana Balaba Janavi Jivata Prati Krishna Prema Prabhu Padmavati Sutta Shriman Shachinandana Purvaja Bhavonmato Jagatrata Rakta Gora Kalevaram Matsamo Nasti Papa Manaparadi Chakashjana Parihare Pilajam Me Kimbruve Purushottama Yuvatinam Yata Yuni Yunam Cha Yuvatau Yata Mano Piramate Tadvan Mano Meramatam Twayi Bhumaus Kalita Paranam Pumir Evam Balambanam Twayi Jata Paradanam Twameva Sharanam Prabho Govinda Balabe Radhe Prarte Twamaham Sada Twadiyam Iti Janatu Govindo Mam Twaya Radhe Vrindavanadi She Karunamrta Vahani Kripayani Jabharabja Dasyam Mayam Pradiyatam Nitai Namineche Namirhate Sharamudye Nam Dite Chere. Nitai has brought the divine name to the marketplace of the holy name, and he is giving away that name for the mere price of your faith. Oh, Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Brinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Today is the Divine Appearance Day of Sri Vamandev. And in this epic saga of the Lord's appearance in the world, we'll begin with Bali Maharaj conquering the heavenly planets. That's Canto 8, Chapter 15. And first I'm going to read the summary to this chapter. This chapter describes how Bali, after performing the Vishvajit Yagya, received the benediction of a chariot and various kinds of paraphernalia for war, with which he attacked the King of Heaven. No, Bhagavatam. That's 8 Canto, Chapter 15. All the demigods, being afraid of him, left the heavenly planets and went away, following the instructions of their guru. So, Bali Maharaj got power. He had worshipped his spiritual master. And it's amazing, throughout the Bhagavatam, we find out the power of worshipping a Brahmana or a Vaishnava. Of course, Shukracharya, we know, was known as a Kula Guru. He reveals his nature later on in the pastime. Of course, he's a great soul. He's mentioned even in the Bhagavad Gita. But there's a way in which, by worshipping the Brahman, by worshipping the Guru, Bali Maharaj attained such strength that he would be able to overcome the demigods in heaven. And they knew it when Bali approached the heavenly kingdom of Indra, and they had consulted with their guru. He said, he's too powerful right now, you can't fight him, because he's properly worshipped the Brahmins and his guru. And therefore the demigods went incognito, and they slipped out of the heavenly planet and just left it for Bali, who took it over. So the very powerful lesson that comes in this section is how, when one follows in the footsteps of the Guru Parampara, is properly aligned. Yasya Devi Para Bhaktir Yata Devi Tata Guru Tasya Te Katita Yarta Prakashanti Mahatmanaha. One gets not only, that verse means if one has implicit faith in the Guru and in Krishna, then one's knowledge of the import of the Vedic literature becomes crystal clear. Otherwise, one's study will be academic. So the process of imbibing knowledge has so much to do with the attitude of the person who's approaching. Krishna says it's all about this attitude. When he mentions in the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, text number 8, if you look at that really quick, he starts naming the ways in which a person aligns him or herself with true knowledge. And amanitvam adambitvam ahimsa shantir arjavam. 13. 8. 8. Thank you. That's humility, pridelessness, and nonviolence. Keep going. Humility, pridelessness, nonviolence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master, cleanliness, steadiness, self-control, renunciation of the objects of sense gratification, absence of false ego, the perception of the evil of birth, death, old age, and disease, detachment, freedom from entanglement with children, wife, home, and the rest, even-mindedness, amid pleasant and unpleasant events, constant and unalloyed devotion to me, aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from the general mass of people, accepting the importance of self-realization, and philosophical search for the absolute truth. All these I declare to be knowledge, and besides this, whatever there may be is ignorance. And also in the Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna that if you want knowledge, you have to approach a person. It's a personal transmission from the heart of one person to the next, from the teacher to the student who approaches with humility. Pranipatina, pariprashnena, sevaya. Three things mentioned, Krishna says. You have to have submission. If you go with your feet on the desk, and it's like, I'm so great, then how can the mercy flow down to you? This is one of the purposes of the parampara, is that the mercy flows down. So if we keep ourselves in a lowly position attitudinally, means that we approach humbly. And also, we have to ask relevant questions, and we also have to render service. Why is it that we have to render service to a person who has knowledge? In order to get it, in order to learn the truth. What is it about service? Who would have thought? I mean, I've heard it was a cliche when I was growing up that you bring your teacher an apple. Here, teacher, I brought you an apple. Why do you render some service?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Oh, everyone wants to answer this. Shraddha, go ahead.
So Maharaj, when we serve somebody, then they feel happy with us, and there is a connection that is established from their heart to our heart. So it's a heart-to-heart connection, and then the information flows.
Wow. That's amazing. Who else was going to say something? Thank you, Shraddha.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So one of the best definitions that I remember.
Is your microphone, are you on Zoom, are you on original sound, or are you on the other setting? If you look at the top left, it says turn on original sound. What?
This is original sound now. Are you able to hear me better?
Turn it off. Or I
Okay.
think...
How about this?
Okay, a little better, yeah.
No, I was one of the best examples that you give or explanations that you used to share was the contents of their heart melt when you serve them because of their happiness, and those flowed directly to you. And that's something that's always stuck with me when we serve our spiritual master or senior devotees. The contents of their heart just melt and flow towards us.
Well, have you ever had that happen to you when a subordinate came to you and gave you something, rendered some service, and then your heart opened to them?
Yes, when I'm trying to teach something to a group of people or one person, the more they ask questions, the more they try to deeply go into the subject matter, and be nice. The more I just want to share as much as I have with them.
Okay. That proves the point, I think, anecdotally. Thank you very much.
Dandavats, Maharaja. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Maharaja,
Maharaja, I think maybe you had said this once, I don't recollect, but what I remember is that Krishna is trying to serve his pure devotee, but the pure devotee doesn't want to take any service from Krishna. So when someone else serves the pure devotee, Krishna actually feels, oh, he's doing the service which I wanted to do. And in that way, Krishna is very, very supportive to that person who is serving his pure devotee. I like that very much and thought I'll share it.
Yes, that's a valid point. That's a valid point, and it's very important that by serving the Vaishnav who's 100% engaged in devotional service, then it satisfies Krishna. And when you satisfy Krishna, then your life becomes perfect. And Prabhupada used to give the example of love me, love my dog. Because if you approach any person or a big person, the way isn't direct. It's through the dog. And you say, I like your dog. And then the person likes you automatically. It works every time. You can try it today. Good luck finding anybody with a dog down there, though. Walking their dog. Okay, so we're continuing with Bali Maharaj conquering the heavenly planets. Maharaj Parikshit wanted to understand how Lord Vamanadev, on the plea of taking 3 paces of land from Bali Maharaj, took everything away from him and arrested him. Shukadeva Goswami responded to this inquiry with the following explanation. In the fight between the demons and the demigods, as described in the 11th chapter of this canto, Bali was defeated, and he died in the fight. But by the grace of Shukracharya, he regained his life. Thus, he engaged himself in the service of Shukracharya, his spiritual master. The descendants of Bhrigu, being pleased with him, engaged him in the Vishvajit Yagya. When this Yagya was performed, from the fire of Yagya came a chariot, horses, a flag, a bow, armor, and 2 quivers of arrows. Maharaj Prahlad, Bali Maharaj's grandfather, gave Bali an eternal garland of flowers, and Shukracharya gave him a conch shell. Bali Maharaj, after offering obeisances to Prahlad, the Brahmanas and his spiritual master Shukracharya equipped him to fight with Indra and went to Indrapuri with his soldiers. Blowing his conch shell, he attacked the outskirts of Indra's kingdom. When Indra saw Bali Maharaj's prowess, he went to his own spiritual master, Brihaspati, told him about Bali's strength, and inquired about his duty. Brihaspati informed the demigods that because Bali had been endowed with extraordinary power by the Brahmanas, the demigods could not fight with him. Their only hope was to gain the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Indeed, there was no alternative. Under the circumstances, Brihaspati advised the demigods to leave the heavenly planets and keep themselves somewhere invisible. The demigods followed his orders, and Bali Maharaj, along with his associates, gained the entire kingdom of Indra. The descendants of Bhrigu Muni, being very affectionate to their disciple Bali Maharaj, engaged him in performing 100 Ashvamedha Yagyas. In this way, Bali enjoyed the opulence of the heavenly planets. A few lessons here. We heard the first one, and we're starting to explore it. And that is that Bali Maharaj properly aligned himself with his guru and with the Brahmins and received their blessings. That's how he got the power to do what he did. So we should never consider whatever we're doing to be coming from ourselves. Always understand that we're being empowered. Even the power of eyesight, hearing, taste, locomotion is all coming as an empowerment and a gift to us. And if we live with that feeling that this is all a gift to me and I'm insignificant, I'm only receiving, and that my duty is to use this in service, whatever gift I have, however I'm being empowered, including just having a human body, I should use everything in the service of the Lord. And this is the mood of the devotee. Isavasyamidang sarvam yatkincha jagatyam jagat tena tyaktena bunjita magradhaka sasuddhanam. That a devotee considers that everything that I have and all empowerment that I have, even my life and my senses, is given to me by the Lord, and therefore I should use it in his service. And it's also the lifestyle of the devotee to take what comes as one's quota. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that you should accept those things, yadrichya, that come of their own accord, labhasantushto, and be satisfied with them. Don't make an extra endeavor to get more things that don't come easily and naturally. However, do make endeavor to increase your devotional service. This was Narada Muni's point to Vyasadeva. He said, you should teach people this. Tasyaiva heto prayateta kovido, nalabhyate yad brahmatamu pariyada. Talabhyate dukkha varanyata sukham kalena sarvatra gabira ramhasa. In course of time, you're going to get your destiny. That means a certain amount of happiness and distress, a certain amount of money, a certain kind of... you get three things, actually, because of your karma. One is called jati, which means a birth in a certain kind of body. Once you get your body, you're stuck with it. Tag, you're it. Here's your thing. That's what you get for this lifetime. Jati, bhoga, you get a certain amount of pleasure and suffering. It's already on a ledger sheet. You can read it. It's in your chart. You're going to have some of this, some of that, and it's all allotted already. And you get some, and your ayu, or your lifespan. Jati, bhog, ayu. These three things come along with your birth because of your previous karma. Kalena sarvatra gabira ramhasa. You've already got that. It's settled. Don't be too desperate about increasing those things. Although you should take care of yourself. Dharmasya hyapavargasya nartoryap yopakalpate nartasya dharmai kantasya kamo labaya hismrita kamasya nendriya pritir labo jivete yavata jivasya tattva jignasya narto yashcheha karmabi. 2 points here. One is, whenever you get material gain, always use it in Krishna's service. And number 2, maintain yourself in a healthy way. Don't let yourself go. But do it with a higher purpose, and that is to engage in Krishna's service. So you saw Prabhupada took a morning walk. He would go out every morning, 5:30 a.m. Right after Mangalartik, he'd go for his walk. He'd walk briskly for an hour or so because it was for his health. But it wasn't because he wanted to get on the cover of a magazine and say, here's the fittest man on earth. It was because he wanted to have the stamina physically to sit and translate Bhagavatam and to travel around the world 14 times. And that's why he did it. So these are the prerogatives and the impetus of the devotees. So that's proper alignment. And another point that's made here is that the resort of these devas, after they realized they had been defeated by Bali, the demigods, went to their spiritual master and then to Lord Vishnu for protection. So that's the other way in which we constantly take shelter, by realizing that I'm helpless and only Krishna can help me. And whatever problem you need to be solved, Krishna says, akama sarva kamo va moksha kama udaradi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. In all circumstances, whatever you need, whatever you're trying to achieve, you should approach Krishna. And you should put the matter before him, because he'll be able to resolve it in the best way for you. And that's a recognition also of where our strength comes from. And the third point here is, look at how Bali got his kingdom. He performed some worship of his gurus and of his guru and the Vaishnavas, and then they engaged him in a special yajna. You can't get anything in this world without yajna. Yajna shista shita shanto muchante sarvakilbisha. Everything comes from yajna, everything good, material or spiritual. So he performed that special yajna and he attained. Now he's in that, he took over the place that he was aiming for, which was the top spot in the universe, right? So what does he have to do now? Now all the Brahmins say, to stay here, you have to perform 100 horse sacrifices. So this is a big lesson, a clue. any material position we get, you're going to have to work for it now, even after you get it. It's not that you get it and you're done. Once you get it, you're going to be in anxiety. He has to perform 100 horse sacrifices to stay sitting on Indra's throne. And that means a lot of work just to maintain it. And this happened with Hiranyakashipu also. Brahma, when he gave the benedictions to Hiranyakashipu, said, oh, goodness gracious, you shouldn't ask for stuff that is going to be a burden that you can't maintain. And Hiranyakashipu couldn't maintain it, even though he did so many austerities. So don't try to get something that is very difficult to maintain or that you can't maintain. On the other side, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna's mentioning this, especially in the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where he says that people worship the demigods so they can elevate themselves, but then they use up all their credits and they fall back down again. And they go through this cycle. He said, but not my devotees. If you're engaged in devotion to me, with your mind fixed on me, ananyash chintayanto mam, yejana pariyupasate, tesham nityabdiyuktanam, yogakshemam bahamyaham, I will personally maintain you. And in the Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, you can look this up, 3rd canto, chapter 25, verse 38. There's a famous verse here that Srila Rupa Goswami brings up. Try 28. Oh, no, that's it. In regard to the way that the devotees live in this world, when you do devotional service and you gain something, or Krishna personally carries it to you, you never lose it. So this is, Shukadeva says, Nakari chinmat parashanta rupe nangshanti no me nimisho ledi heti Isham aham priya atma sutascha sakha guru surado daivam ishta. The Lord continued, my dear mother, devotees who receive such transcendental opulences are never bereft of them. Neither weapons nor the change of time can destroy such opulences. Because the devotees accept me as their friend, their relative, their son, preceptor, benefactor, and supreme deity, they cannot be deprived of their possessions at any time. Purport, it is stated in Bhagavad Gita that one may elevate himself to the higher planetary systems, even up to Brahmaloka, by dint of pious activities. But when the effects of such pious activities are finished, one again comes back to this earth to begin a new life of activities. Thus, even though one is promoted to the higher planetary system for enjoyment and a long duration of life, still that is not a permanent settlement. But as far as the devotees are concerned, their assets, the achievement of devotional service, and the consequent opulence of Vaikuntha, even on this planet, are never destroyed. In this verse, Kapila addresses his mother as Shanta Rupa, indicating that the opulences of devotees are fixed because devotees are eternally fixed in the Vaikuntha atmosphere, which is called Shanta Rupa, because it is in the mode of pure goodness, undisturbed by the modes of passion and ignorance. Once one is fixed in the devotional service of the Lord, his position of transcendental service cannot be destroyed, and the pleasure and service simply increase unlimitedly. For the devotees engaged in Krishna consciousness in the Vaikuntha atmosphere, there is no influence of time. In the material world, the influence of time destroys everything. But in the Vaikuntha atmosphere, there is no influence of time or of the demigods, because there are no demigods in the Vaikuntha planets. Here, our activities are controlled by different demigods. Even if we move our hand and leg, the action is controlled by the demigods. But in the Vaikuntha atmosphere, there is no influence of the demigods or of time. Therefore, there is no question of destruction. When the time element is present, there is the certainty of destruction. But when there is no time element, past, present, or future, then everything is eternal. Therefore, this verse uses the words nangshanti, indicating that the transcendental opulences will never be destroyed. The reason for freedom from destruction is also described. The devotees accept the Supreme Lord as the most dear personality and reciprocate with him in different relationships. They accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the dearmost friend, the dearmost relative, the dearmost son, the dearmost preceptor, the dearmost well-wisher, or the dearmost deity. The Lord is eternal. Therefore, any relationship in which we accept him is also eternal. It is clearly confirmed herein that the relationships cannot be destroyed, and therefore the opulences of those relationships are never destroyed. Every living entity has the propensity to love someone. If we can see that if someone has no object of love, he generally directs his love to a pet animal like a cat or a dog. Thus, the eternal propensity for love in all living entities is always searching for a place to reside. From this verse, we can learn that we can love the Supreme Personality of Godhead as our dearmost object, as a friend, as a son, as a preceptor, or as a well-wisher. And there will be no cheating and no end to such love. We shall eternally enjoy the relationship with the Supreme Lord in different aspects. A special feature of this verse is the acceptance of the Supreme Lord as the Supreme Preceptor. Bhagavad Gita was spoken directly by the Supreme Lord, and Arjuna accepted Krishna as Guru, or spiritual master. Similarly, we should accept only Krishna as the Supreme Spiritual Master. Krishna, of course, means Krishna and his confidential devotees. Krishna is not alone. When we speak of Krishna, Krishna means Krishna in his name, in his form, in his qualities, in his abode, and in his associates. Krishna is never alone, for the devotees of Krishna are not impersonalists. For example, a king is always associated with his secretary, his commander, his servant, and so much paraphernalia. As soon as we accept Krishna and his associates as our preceptors, no ill effects can destroy our knowledge. In the material world, the knowledge which we acquire may change because of the influence of time, but nevertheless, the conclusions received from Bhagavad Gita directly from the speeches of the Supreme Lord Krishna can never change. There is no use interpreting Bhagavad Gita. It is eternal. Krishna, the Supreme Lord, should be accepted as one's best friend. He will never cheat. He will always give his friendly advice and friendly protection to the devotee. If Krishna is accepted as a son, he will never die. Here we have a very loving son or child, but the father and mother, or those who are affectionate towards him, always hope, may my son not die. But Krishna actually never will die. Therefore, those who accept Krishna, the Supreme Lord, as their son will never be bereft of their son. In many instances, devotees have accepted the deity as a son. In Bengal, there are many such instances, and even after the death of the devotee, the deity performs the Shraddha ceremony for the father. The relationship is never destroyed. People are accustomed to worship different forms of demigods, but in Bhagavad Gita, such a mentality is condemned. Therefore, one should be intelligent enough to worship only the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his different forms, such as Lakshmi Narayan, Sitaram, and Radha Krishna. Thus, one will never be cheated. By worshipping the demigods, one may elevate himself to the higher planets, but during the dissolution of the material world, the deity and the abode of the deity will be destroyed. But one who worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead is promoted to the Vaikuntha planets, where there is no influence of time, destruction, or annihilation. The conclusion is that the time influence cannot act upon devotees who have accepted the Supreme Personality of Godhead as everything. Hare Krishna. Now, Bali Maharaj, having taken over the heavenly planets, has evoked the concern of Aditi, who approaches Kashyapa. But first I want to read from 8:15-28. And here, Brihaspati, the spiritual master of the demigod, said, "O Indra, I know the cause of your enemies becoming powerful. The Brahmin descendants of Bhrigu Muni, being pleased by Bali Maharaj, their disciple, endowed him with such extraordinary power." In the purport, Brihaspati, the spiritual master of the demigods, informed Indra, ordinarily Bali and his forces could not achieve such strength, but it appears that the Brahmana descendants of Bhrigu Muni, being pleased with Bali Maharaj, endowed them with this spiritual power. In other words, Brihaspati informed Indra that Bali Maharaj's prowess was not his own, but that of his exalted guru, Shukracharya. We sing in our daily prayers, Yasya prasadad bhagavat prasado, Yasya prasadana gatikutopi. By the pleasure of the spiritual master, one can get extraordinary power, especially in spiritual advancement. The blessings of the spiritual master are more powerful than one's personal endeavor for such advancement. Narottam Das Thakur therefore says, Guru Mukha Padma Bhakta Chite Te Koriya Aiko Arana Koriya Mani Asha. Especially for spiritual advancement, one should carry out the bona fide order of the spiritual master by the parampara system. One can thus be endowed with the original spiritual power coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Evam parampara praptam imam rajarsheo vidu. So this is important to emphasize and to hear the details of how one becomes successful in life. It is through following the Guru Parampara, because that is a copper wire carrying electricity from Krishna himself, and by performing one's worship properly, then one becomes empowered. Empowered with what? A taste for chanting Hare Krishna, for starters. And as Prabhupada mentioned, as he was empowered to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world, starting with no facilities, it's all coming from my Guru Maharaj. I'm simply following his order. So that's something simple. It may not be easy, but it's simple. And he stuck to that and therefore claimed success all over the world because of following the order of the Guru in the Guru Parampara. That's the secret to success. So, in the next chapter, which is called Executing the Payo Vrata Process of Worship, Aditi becomes filled with anxiety because her sons are now expelled from their position in heaven, and she wants to do something to help them. And she approaches the Supreme Lord. Let's read this summary. This is for chapter 16. As described in this chapter, because Aditi, the mother of the demigods, was very afflicted, her husband Kashyapa Muni told her how to observe vows in austerities for the benefit of her sons. Since the demigods were not visible in the heavenly kingdom, their mother Aditi, because of separation from them, was very much aggrieved. One day, after many, many years, the great sage Kashyapa emerged from a trance of meditation and returned to his ashrama. He saw that the ashrama was no longer beautiful and that his wife was very morose. Everywhere in the ashrama he saw signs of lamentation. The great sage therefore inquired from his wife about the well-being of the ashrama and asked her why she looked so morose. After Aditi informed Kashyapa about the ashrama's well-being, she told him that she was lamenting for the absence of her sons. Since then, requesting him to tell her how her sons could return and reoccupy their positions, she wanted all good fortune for her sons. Moved by Aditi's request, Kashyapa instructed her in the philosophy of self-realization, the difference between matter and spirit, and how to be unaffected by material loss. But when he saw that Aditi was not satisfied, even after he had given these instructions, he advised her to worship Vasudeva Janardhan. he assured her that only Lord Vasudeva could satisfy her and fulfill all her desires. When Aditi then expressed her desire to worship Lord Vasudeva, Prajapati Kashyapa told her about a process of worship known as Vrata, which is executed in 12 days. Lord Brahma had instructed him how to satisfy Lord Krishna by this process, and thus he advised his wife to observe this vow and its regulative principles. So here's the next very important instruction in Abhideya, or practical application of this principle, how to surrender to the Supreme Lord. So we notice here how Aditi has gone to Kashyapa, or she's registered her concern with him, and effectively he's her spiritual master and a great sage. So he says, she told him this is the problem, and he knows how to remedy that in a practical way, and that is by worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he imparted to her a system of worshiping the Supreme Lord over 12 days, only drinking milk and performing many other rules and regulations in a vow, through which she would fulfill her desire. So this is important to remember also, that the way that we are able to move forward in our lives is only by performing the yajna. So how to occupy our time, how to organize our lives, we should organize it around the system that's given to us through the parampara. Don't speculate. You don't have to make all kinds of extra endeavors, but strictly follow the simple path given through the parampara. Find out what yajna means. Yajna means to satisfy the senses of Krishna. And if you can find out the best way to do that, and you follow the authorized system under a guide, under a spiritual master who's coming in the disciplic succession, then you'll be successful. That's the lesson that's given here. Now, this is a very interesting process. This Vrata has various rules and regulations that you'll think, oh, would I want to do that? Sleep on the floor, just drink milk for 12 days. And Prabhupada says something very interesting in this chapter that I think will make you all happy. But I have to put on my glasses to see if you smile when I tell you. Some of you are already smiling, so now I won't be able to tell the difference. But he says, and I'll read you the purport, that in the modern day Krishna consciousness movement, we need not worry about following a Vrata process as given here particularly, because everything that we're doing in the Krishna consciousness movement is already aligned or even with pleasing Krishna through yajna. The very lifestyle that we've been given, for instance in ISKCON, going to Mangalartik, chanting 16 rounds, worshipping Tulsi Devi, and so forth. And here I quote from Prabhupada's purport in 816, number 60, a little further along in the halfway down the purport. Srila Prabhupada writes, especially for this age of Kali, the process accepted by the Krishna consciousness movement is to open hundreds and thousands of Vishnu temples, temples of Radha Krishna, Jagannath, Balaram, Sitaram, Gauranitai, and so on. Performing prescribed worship in such temples of Vishnu and thus worshipping the Lord is as good as performing the Vrata ceremony recommended here. So when we see, inevitably, if you go to right now, none of us are going to the temple, but in normal times, when you go to the temple and you see Sundarananda there, because you always see Sundarananda Prabhu in the temple, because he has a natural attraction for being with the Lord. He never wants to be separated. That's the nature of Sundarananda Prabhu. So if you go there and you see Sundarananda quietly sitting, chanting Hare Krishna, he's always chanting, he's always looking at the deities, he doesn't complain, he doesn't do anything but just align himself with this process. Radha, Krishna are there, established by a pure devotee through the parampara system, perfectly aligned with all the padditis that have come down through Narada Muni. And the process of chanting Hare Krishna, perfectly authorized by Śrī Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And there he is, chanting. He's already doing all the Payovrata, everything, completely, perfectly. And another amazing point is that it's such a merciful network that Prabhupada created that if somebody else walks in off the street and says, hey, what are you guys doing here? And someone says, well, just sit down for a minute. And he smells the incense. And he smells the flowers. He sees the beauty of the deities. And he thinks, this is really odd, but it's kind of beautiful and nice. He's also performing Payovrata. And so this Payovrata vow, the principle is that one should please Lord Vishnu. And if you align yourself with the great acharyas somehow or other, Tvayam bujaksha kilasatvadamni samadhina veshita chetasaike twatpada potena mahatkritena kurvanti govatsa padam bhavabdim. The demigods praying to Lord Krishna in the womb said, Tvayam bujaksha kilasatvadamni samadhina veshita chetasaike. The object of one's vision should always be Krishna. He's the source of creation, and he's the sustainer of all the devotees. So Chetasaike, just keep your Cheta, your consciousness, Eka, in one place, on Krishna. And then he says, Twatpada potena mahatkritena. This is what the great souls do. And watch what they do. Watch how they set it up for themselves, and then you just follow them. Twatpada potena mahatkritena kurvanti govatsa padam bhavabdim. Then you make it easy. Because when you follow in the footsteps of the great souls who are doing it, so they are always fixed on Krishna, and you follow them, then you're in. You're just in. Bejare muneo tagre bhagavantam adhoksaja. Sattvam vishudam shemaya kalpante yenutaniha. Previously, all the great sages worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And if anybody else follows them in mood and in process, to the best of their ability, whoever that person may be, they're also counted as eligible for the exact destination that those great souls get. That's the benediction. So Prabhupada goes on, the Payovrata ceremony is performed from the 1st to the 13th day of the bright fortnight of the moon. But in our Krishna consciousness movement, Lord Vishnu is worshipped in every temple according to a schedule of 24 hours of engagement in performing kirtan, chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, offering palatable food to Lord Vishnu, and distributing this food to Vaishnavas and others. These are authorized activities, and if the members of the Krishna consciousness movement stick to these principles, they will achieve the same result one gains by observing the Payovrata ceremony. Thus, the essence of all auspicious activities, such as performing yajna, giving in charity, observing vratas, and undergoing austerities, is included in the Krishna consciousness movement. I'm watching now. I'm seeing if you're smiling. The members of this movement should immediately and sincerely follow the process already recommended. Of course, sacrifice is meant to please Lord Vishnu. Yagnai Sankirtana Prayara Yajantihi Sumeda Saha. In a Kali Yuga, those who are intelligent perform the Sankirtan Yajna. One should follow this process conscientiously. So this is great news for all of us, because we're aligned with the Payovrata vow. We're aligned with a lifestyle and a process through which we're following in the footsteps of the Mahat, the great souls. Mahat sevam dwaram ahurva muktes tamo dwaram yoshitam sangi sangam mahantaste samachita prasanta vimanya maksurida sadavoye. That's the service that is to the great souls that opens the door to liberation. And that's the whole process of devotional service. Rahuganai tatta pasannayati nachejaya nirvapanad grihadva. All the other kinds of rules and regulations are all perfected if you follow in the footsteps of the pure devotee of the Lord. vinam mahatpada rajobhishekam. But vina, without that, rajobhishekam, taking the foot dust, which means to follow, to organize your life around the principles that the Acharya has given and follow it, and to follow the Guru Parampara. Without that, Prahlad Maharaj says, you're not going to get anything. You're not going to be successful. That's where the spiritual rubber meets the road. So the great lesson, very inspiring from the determination of Aditi to follow. She took the instruction from her guru. She just, with great determination, which is really what Rupa Goswami says, utsaha nishchaya dharya tata karma pravartana. Be very determined. Determined means, and I was thinking about this yesterday. I had a conversation with Nirkula last night on our walk. I was thinking about determination comes from a word which means you know what the parameters are. Determine, because there's a line at the end where you see your goal. And as I told you, probably ad nauseum, that I wrote down my priorities. And one of them that really affected me when I wrote it down was, I am prepared for death. And then I was thinking yesterday how unless you have that goal, then you're going to fall short, because you have to be going for the goal at the longest end in order to achieve everything that you need to in the human form of life. And that's the whole purpose of Bhagavatam. How to have success at the end. So I should be fixed on that as the ultimate long-term goal, that I am prepared for that final moment. And in that preparation, everything I do in my life will fall into the proper perspective. Otherwise, I may lose perspective and have goals that are not ultimately adding to that final goal. Okay, I'm going to take a few reflections and questions. Otherwise, I'm in
Hare Krishna.
of rambling on and on. Hare Krishna.
Sorry, here, it's 4 hours more, so we have to take little prasad. Sorry for this. We're in Argentina.
I was enjoying the cooking process and the honoring of prasadam, very much so.
Sorry. So I have two reflections. The one is regard that you many times said that when you decorate your face, so in the mirror also will be decorate. That's one point. And the other one is like, when I was young, my father used to say that it's more important how much it will cost something to maintain than the price that you will pay in the moment. So that's...
Ooh, that's good. Yeah, I'm just going to investment and economic advice. People who have a much wider perspective. For instance, oftentimes nowadays, people will analyze, well, what does it cost to buy a house? Because then you have to pay property tax. You have to pay so many other different fees just to maintain it. What does it cost compared to leasing a house? And then you math it up. You have to look at the math and see which comes out better, right? Buy a car, you drive it off the lot, it's devalued by 50%. The second that the first wheel hits the pavement, even if you take it back, it's 50% less, because you just took a depreciating asset, and that's what the material world is. It's one big depreciating asset. The whole material universe, always depreciating. But devotional service, calculating how to get the assets that actually appreciate and that you never lose on. That's the preoccupation of the devotees. Thank you for that very practical vision. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
I have a question, Prabhu. Prabhu, I was thinking about Brihaspati is the guru for all the demigods, right? So in the 9th canto, we were reading yesterday that he wanted to have an association with his brother's wife. And he did. And of course, then that child becomes the the he continues the dynasty of Bharat Maharaj. So I was just trying to understand what's the mood we have to understand, because he is the guru for the entire demigods. So should we take it like the illusory energy of Krishna is so heavy that even a guru of the entire demigod can actually even think of doing such things?
You have to understand different eras that exist in the universe. When we hear, for instance, about various sages wanting to get a wife and to live in a household life, it's very different. They're doing a much higher, that they don't have material desires, but they're doing their duty. For instance, in the beginning of the universe, there's much need for propagation. And of course, there's always this dichotomy, as Prabhupada mentions in the story of Daksha, where Daksha has all these sons, and then Narada comes along and interrupts their special worship process so they can become really good grahastas and have a lot of children. He says, man, don't bother. And then they just take off. And then he does it again. And then he has a big argument with Daksha. And in the commentary, Prabhupada says, this is a perennial dichotomy that takes place. He said, anyway, my spiritual master was a Naishtika brahmachari. But then, of course, many of, we find out with Vrata, he was going on that path, and then his father Swayambhuva, and then Brahma came, and they said, no, we need you to, get into the Grahastha ashram. You got to be the temple president and do all this stuff. And he was just going to sit in a cave and do his bhajan. And so there's also, there's a difference in the universe, in the impetus for such things. Nowadays, we can't compare, even to 100 years ago, the atmosphere, what to speak of thousands of years ago. It's hard to understand the mindset and the motivation of different, especially great souls, when they do something like that. In fact, it says in the Srimad Bhagavatam, when somebody's judging a very high personality or a controller, and one shouldn't put the same standard there as one does for an ordinary person. So none of these are ordinary people, and their motives are quite different. So we have to look a little deeper into that to see that it is something at the time which was common, and also which was motivated by a higher purpose. That's how we can understand it. Okay. Shall we take a question from the board? This is from Sringara Ras Devi Dasi, who says, when we see fault in other people, we can analyze that it is our own fault that we see in others in a magnified form, but that can occur only after the fact. How do we train ourselves to not spot fault in others, especially when one has been trained to figure out what is wrong in a person? This training is in reference to my material profession. Thank you very much. Even in material profession, you have to be careful how you find fault with people. Peter Burwash, very successful business magnate who won awards for his business management, has companies all over the world, told me once that when he hires somebody into his company, he always asks them, how do you like your criticism? Do you like it the easy way, the direct way? Do you want it indirect, and so forth? He said it's custom made for each person. You have to be very careful. And as far as our own vision goes, the way that we can avoid is, number one, to understand that when we fault find with people that haven't signed up for it, either professionally or spiritually, if somebody signs up as a disciple, for instance, they're basically saying, I want you to find the faults and tell me about it. But even then, you have to be careful, because different disciples take it differently. You might say something and they're like, well, And so be careful how you find fault, and also understand that unless you do it judiciously and in a way that will meet that person's sensitivities or match their sensitivities, then it may not be effective. So you have to be very careful when dealing with others. And best, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, to find fault with yourself and try to repair it, because the best, teaching by example isn't the best way to teach. It's the only way to teach. Because if there's an iota of not being aligned with in integrity with what you're teaching, then nobody's going to follow you anyway. And if you are aligned, your integrity is your strength. In fact, that's one of my daily affirmations, that all strength comes from integrity. And you don't even have to say anything if you have integrity, because the power comes out. There's a Shakti that you get from integrity. You actually followed the vow. You actually did it. You fingered every bead. You said every mantra. You did it sincerely as best as you could. You're aligning yourself, whether you're in public or in private, with what you say you're going to do. And when you do that, even Patanjali says that when you follow the yamas and niyamas carefully, you get great mystic powers. Where do you think they come from? They come from integrity. If you're always avowedly truthful, which is really hard to do, you can try it for a day and see what happens. Then you'll develop such power in your speech that people they'll believe you wherever you go, and you can change the world with a few words when you have integrity. I'm just looking to see if I actually answered the question. Okay, number 2, Ankit said, when we try to serve someone with sincerity, especially some elevated spiritual personality, the feeling of submission naturally develops and makes the heart humble to receive the instructions and knowledge. Without the feeling of submission to spiritual master, we may even receive knowledge, but they will just be a shallow level and remain academic. Acharyamam vijaniyam navamanyeta karichit namartya buddha suyeta sarvadeva mayo guru. Krishna says this in the Bhagavatam. He said, when you serve the acharya, or the one who's teaching you, you should see the spiritual master to be my representative. He said that there's no difference because the person's following me. And therefore, he said, Nava manyete karichit. Karichit, at any time, don't get envious and think, he eats, he sleeps, that's an ordinary person. That's Krishna's admonition. Sarvadeva mayo guru, because when a person who's aligned in parampara speaks and performs a devotional service, then there's a way in which it pleases even the demigods. And therefore, Sarva Deva Mayo Guru, they become pleased if somebody is following such a person. And then one gets all the benedictions. So it says Sarva Deva Mayo Guru. He's the culmination of all the demigods. You don't need to go anywhere else. You're connected to the wire. So, anonymous question. This is scary, but I'm going to read it. Okay, as Srila Prabhupada often says, the Sankirtan Yajna is the only means in this age of Kali Yuga. But we see on Bhadra Purnima, we will perform Nishringa Sudarshan Homa Yajna. So why are we promoting something that is not so much approved by Srila Prabhupada? Any of the clarification will help me. Now I see why it's anonymous. Come on now. Be vulnerable. Put yourself out there. We're doing it to advance the Sankirtan Yajna. Because people are attracted to such things, and it causes a big splash, and because it's going to help us to distribute more Bhagavatams, that's why we do it. It's utilitarian. We're not promoting yajnas, but we're promoting the Bhagavatam. That's our only motivation. And whatever we can do to catch people's attention and say, hey, this is something great, and get more people from a wider circumference involved. Because a lot of people, they'll look at the yajna, they go, ooh, that's something happening. There's rice flying around, there's mantras going on, there's a fire. And then you have these sadhus coming on saying, yeah, you should read the Bhagavatam. This is how to expand the circumference of attraction. So it's all utilitarian, that's why. We are not attached to yajnas at all. We are attached to Bhagavatam and distributing Bhagavatam. Reflection from Krishna. Bhagavatam prepares us for the end. Nishreyasaya lokasya. Nishreyasaya lokasya. Yes. And then Achyuta Radhe says, Dandavat Praman. How do we know that we are prepared for the last moment? Well, when we advance in devotional service, we go through these stages, starting with Shraddha, and then Sadhusanga, and then Bhajana Kriya, and then Anartana Vritti, and then Nishta, Ruchi, Asakti, Bhava, and Prema. The devotee who's advancing past the Ruchi into Asakti and Bhava starts to live in the spiritual world, even in this body. So it's not a mystery to such a person. The heart is already a television through which the channel is open, because really our connection with the spiritual world is always there. It's just obscured now by the chitta, or the mind, which is so filled up with the reflections of the material world, material desires, the samskars that have accumulated over many years. But by the process of Cheto Darpana Marjanam, cleaning the chitta, the mirror of the mind, one then starts to see one's spiritual nature. One sees Krishna's presence, and by hearing Bhagavatam and taking and serving the sadhus, then when actually the heart becomes connected to that internal ray of the spiritual world. And even in this lifetime, Iha yasya harer dasye kamana manasa gira nikela apyavastastu jivan mukta suuchite. One becomes a liberated soul even in this lifetime. Does a person know it? Absolutely. Even in the stages coming up to that, we hear tada rajas tamo bhava kama lobadayaschaye cheta itera navidam stitam sattve prasidati. A person feels it for him or herself. Yes, I'm becoming freed from the base modes of nature, and now I feel I'm situated in actual spiritual life. Stitam sattve prasidati, and then evam prasana manaso bhagavad bhakti yogata, etc. This is experienced directly by the devotee. So the devotee will already be in a relationship with Krishna, even in this life, in this body, before transferring to the spiritual world. It's not a mystery how that happens. It's directly known to the devotee. We already have that. It's just a matter of reconnecting it and uncovering it. Okay, I want to say a couple more things about the pastimes of Lord Vaman Dev, and for that purpose, I'm going to the next chapter, because I have a couple more points I'd like to make. So the Supreme Lord agreed to become Aditi's son, and this is the Lord's prerogative. He can appear wherever he wishes. And then when he appears, he makes his transcendental birth as Vamandev. So if you'll go to 8:18, you see that at text number 6, when the Lord appeared on Dwadashi, the 12th day of the moon, the sun was at the meridian. As every learned scholar knows, this Dwadashi is called Vijaya. extraordinary circumstances during that time. There's dancing, there's beautiful music, and then when the Lord appears, various great personalities come and give him gifts and celebrate his appearance in the world. And then in chapter 19, Lord Vamandev begs charity from Bali Maharaj. So, one of the points that is made in this section is that Vamandev appears in a particular form. He's a tiny little brahmachari. And so why did he appear in that form and go before Bali Maharaj in that form? And Srila Prabhupada in this section informs us, he said it's just to have a little fun with his devotee. So Krishna is funny and he's fun-loving. And he appears in that form. It's funny. This is funny. He comes as a little Brahmin boy in front of Bali Maharaj who thinks he's controlling the whole universe. And he's got all this wealth and followers. But at heart, he's a devotee. So Vamandev wants to enjoy a little fun with his devotee. How does he know he's a devotee? Because Krishna is Bhava Grahi Janardana. He knows the heart. And this comes out in the pastime. He already knew the heart of Bali. And when he came into the assembly, he lit up everything. Everyone else, and there were great souls there, were effulgent because of their austerities, because of all their yagyas. They had wealth, unlimited wealth. They had power. They were there in heaven. They just took over. They were victorious. And so come Vaman, this little brahmachari, and everybody was shut down. In other words, his effulgence overwhelmed everybody else. All eyes. He was the cynosure of all eyes, the center of everything when he came in. So the Lord and his devotees are self-effulgent. And at that time, Bali Maharaj wanted to give himself to the Lord. You see the deity and then you're overcome in your heart and you think, oh, I'm surrendering. That's it. This is too beautiful. This is Krishna. I see it. I see him here. Or if you meet a Vaishnav where you go like, wow, I never heard it like that before. And I want to be like this person. I'm following the footsteps. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what my family says. I don't care what my boss says. I'm doing this. That impetus that comes into the heart because of the self-effulgence of the Lord and his devotees. That was Bali Maharaj's mood when he saw Vamandev come into the assembly. So when the sun rises, nobody has a big argument. The sun didn't come up. Everybody knows. And when the Lord appears, he's there. And the devotees, their hearts come alive. So Bali Maharaj's heart came alive. And Krishna knew it. And Bali, due to external circumstances, could not get down and offer his obeisance and say, I surrender to you. But that's what he felt in his heart. And that's very interesting because there may be a situation I have in my life where I know what I'm supposed to do, but I'm just encumbered right now. I can't do it completely. So what to do? Fan that spark within the heart, that sincere desire that I want to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He will fulfill that desire in ways that are unbelievably unavailable, that are unavailable to me, but he'll make all arrangements for it to happen. And that's the essence of devotional service, is to fan that spark of surrender in the heart, that I want to surrender to Krishna. I don't know how. I don't know how this is going to happen. But Krishna, Hare Krishna, please make it happen for me. So that was Bali Maharaj's mood. And because Krishna is Bhavagrahi Janardana, he knows the essence of the devotee's heart. He knows his bhava. And that he knew Bali Maharaj's heart. So then, this awkward situation came up. Bali Maharaj then was giving charity at this time of the sacrifice, and he told this Vamana, you take what you like. I can give you anything. The chariots, land, wives, you say, all cows, whatever you want to give. Whatever you want me to give you, I will give. I'm the emperor. And Vaman said, 3 paces of land to fit my footprints. I mean, this is funny. I mean, this is really funny stuff. He just says, give me 3. And Bali looks at his lotus feet and he says, that's too little. Your feet are so small. How are you going to get anything out of that? That's all you want? And Vaman says, well, the only way, and then he says, the only way a Brahmin gets power is through being satisfied. If a Brahmin is satisfied with whatever he gets, a simple little thing, then that's the power. And if he's dissatisfied, then loses power. And he says, anyway, I know it's true. It's a principle in this world that if you get more, you just want more after that, and you're never satisfied. So he said, you could give me 3 planets, and it wouldn't make a difference. I wouldn't be happy. Let me just take a little bit. And meanwhile, his intention was to take a little donation from his devotee, to take away everything. And throughout this section, Prabhupada quotes, as do the acharyas, Yasyahamana grinnami harishe taddanam shadai tato janam tajant yasya swajana dukadukitam. Krishna said this, 1088.8 in the Bhagavatam. You'll find it in the section of Kurukshetra when everybody met. And he says, I show a mercy to my devotees by taking away all their attachments. Why does he do it? He wants to give them something better. And so Bali Maharaj sensed this. This is what the devotee senses. This is the intelligence of the devotee. Krishna is taking away just so he can give me something better. So don't freak out. And don't worry. He's all good. And he has my best interest in mind. I don't even know what my best interest is. I'm doing things wrong. I'm making mistakes. But if you leave it to Krishna and surrender to him, he'll make the arrangement. So Krishna then gives the devotee this uncomfortable feeling. Everything's being taken away. And he has nowhere else to go then except say, Krishna, all I have left is you. And that's what the Bhagavatam says is the goal of life. Samashrita ye parapalava plavam mahat param punya yasho murare bhavam budir vatsa padam param padam 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 yad vipadam natesham. Don't take shelter in this dangerous material world where whatever you have, you're going to lose anyway. You're going to trip and spill it. You're going to break your toe when you do it. Just take shelter of Krishna, who's the shelter of the entire universe. And then your life will become perfect in inexplicable ways. So Bali Maharaj then agrees to give it, but then Shukracharya becomes disturbed because he has a vested interest. And this is another really important point. Whenever I have a vested interest in the world, that I want something out of it, then I'm vulnerable materially. And I can be exploited. That's why presidents, they're not supposed to have vested interest in economic concerns around the world, because somebody can blackmail them as they want something. Professors, they're supposed to be neutral and non-political, and they're supposed to be protected so they could say whatever they want, so that they just say the truth. But Shukracharya said, don't do it. He said, it's not what you think it is. Shukracharya could see this is Vishnu. And he said this Vamana is not a Brahmana. He's the greatest cheater, Lord Vishnu, and he's going to rip you off. And the reason he said it was because Shukracharya was thinking, what about me? What about my cut? I'm getting a percentage out of this deal because Bali Maharaj is my disciple and he's giving me. And if he doesn't have anything after Vishnu takes it all, my family's going to go hungry. That's the wrong motivation. And that's why when Bali heard that, he said, he didn't say anything. He was silent, actually. And the reason he was silent was because it's not right to contradict your spiritual master. At the same time, he knew that he had to. Because when the spiritual master contradicts Vishnu, then you have to follow Vishnu. you can't follow the spiritual master. That's the principle. So now he remained silent, and he finally retorted, and he said, no one in my family has ever taken back a promise. It's never happened before. And Shukracharya said, well, I have a loophole for you. It says in the Shastra, until you've said Om Tat Sat, till you've poured water from your water pot, it's not signed. You didn't do the DocuSign thing. It's not, you didn't actually technically sign it. So it's not a legal document yet. You can get out of this. And Bali said, I have to do it. Especially if it's Vishnu. He was thinking, she's selling a Bhagavatam set. Somebody can confirm because I can't understand. So then Bali went to pour water from his pot to seal the deal. And actually in the Puranas describe how Shukracharya became, he took the form of a fly, and he went up and blocked the water pot. He blocked the spout so the water couldn't come out. So Vamandev took a little straw and poked it in there and poked his eye. And then the water started coming out. And there it was. That was the deal was sealed. So then Vamandev, of course, he took his donation, but he covered the whole universe in the first 2 steps. Everything was subsumed within his lotus footsteps, kicked a hole in the Ganges, in the covering of the universe. Ganges came through, and then he said, okay, give me my 3rd step. You cheated me. See, this is funny too. He took everything, and then he turns back to his disciple and he says, give me the 3rd footstep. And in a very loving way, in a surrendered way, of course, he arrested him first. Vaman's, Garuda was there. He didn't say anything. Vaman didn't say anything, but Garuda understood, his guru, what was going on. Very intimate servant of the spiritual master. It doesn't have to be told anything, just looks and understands the situation and then does it. That's first-class disciple. So Garuda's first-class disciple. So he saw what was going on. He knew what Krishna wanted. So he went and he tied up Bali Maharaj with the ropes. And the Vaman says, okay, you scoundrel, cheater, give me my 3rd step. Give me my 3rd step. And Bali said, Atmanivedana, put it on my head. You can have, I don't even belong to myself anymore. I give myself to you. That's relief. When Sanatana Goswami left everything, after he saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his mind was gone. That's what I was talking about before. When you see the Vaishnav, when you see Krishna, your mind goes there and you can't bring it back. The damage is done. And so he went back to his life and he said, I'm not interested in anything. He lost interest in the whole material world. Tyaktvaturna mashesha manalpati shrenim sadat tuchavat. All he wanted to do was hear Bhagavatam. And they came over, his employer sent over a doctor to see why he was calling in sick every day. And the doctor came back and said, he's not sick, he's reading Bhagavatam. And so his employer came over and said, hey, you work or go to jail? Sanatan said, I can't work for you anymore. My mind's gone. It already left. So he put him in jail. You know how he escaped. And then he went up in the mountains with Ishana. And Ishana was hiding some gold coins. He handed him over. Sanatan handed him over so he didn't get killed to the innkeeper who was a dacoit, actually. And Ishana had one left. He said, go home, keep it. Sanatan left with no money. After the innkeeper showed him the path through the hills, so you go up this way, that way, this way. He took him that far enough so he'd make it on his own. But he had nothing, no money. Clothes were very simple because he was in disguise at that time, acting like a commoner. Nothing. And then he felt happiness in his heart. And it's the only time that we feel complete release and happiness is when we do Atmanivedana and we say, that's it. I don't even belong to myself. I give it all to Krishna. Then we're in our constitutional happy position So Bali did that. And he became a Mahajan. He's known as one of the Mahajans. That he showed that path. And then Vamandev pushed him down with his lotus feet to Sutala, which is hundreds of times more opulent than the kingdom of heaven. Sutala planet. And he was so indebted to his devotee that he said, I'll never leave you. And to stay with his devotee, out of love, he became his doorkeeper. You know, like on Fifth Avenue in New York, doorkeepers open the door, you can come, no, you can't come. He became a doorkeeper for his devotee because he becomes purchased by the love and surrender of his devotee. So Bali Maharaj then became famous for giving himself. And no one becomes famous for losing their money to the government. No one becomes famous for losing it in business. Oh, I went bankrupt. So you're an idiot. No one becomes famous because they lost their wallet on the street. It's like, oh, you should be more careful next time. But if somebody deliberately gives their stuff to Krishna, they become famous. Because nobody wants to do that. Everyone's self-interested. But not Bali Maharaj. Even though he owned the whole universe, even though everything belonged to him, he said, that's it. I'm giving it to Vishnu. And it's then that second that we attain perfection in life. And Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Sarva dharman parityaja mami kam sharanam braja. Ahang tong sarva papibhyo mukshayishami masuchaha. Just surrender to me. Don't worry. Masuchaha, don't worry. Don't hesitate. Just do it. And Prabhupada says in the purport, you can do that at any time you wish. There's no formalities that you have to go to. It's your birthright. You can say at any time, that's it. I'm signing up for this one. And Jiva Goswami says, the devotees think about that instruction, Sarvadharma Parityaja, and how Krishna will protect them if you surrender. They think about it constantly. And it's their main impetus in life. So this story of Bali Maharaj is so powerful, and it's sweet at the same time. The way the Lord approached him in this funny way, and just said, "Give me a little donation." It always reminds me of Sankirtan, because we just go like, "Yeah, just give a penny," and the next thing the person's got a book in their house. Next thing they're reading it. Next thing, they're moving everything out, or their whole life changes. Krishna's like that. And that's really the whole purpose of the material world, is so that the living entity who's been in this world since the time immemorial, who's caught in the wheel of karma and can't get out, makes this decision like Bali Maharaj made and says, that's it. No mas. I give up. I'm surrendering. So we worship Vamandev on this day for being so kind, sweet, beautiful, funny, and for Bali Maharaj for surrendering and showing us the path to perfection, and that we have nothing to worry about and all to gain by giving ourselves to the devotional path. Om Tat Sat. So now we're going to have the Guru Puja. And I think I got my Jamulus to work. I don't know why it wasn't working. It's just my karma with technology. But let me check and see if I can get it going. Hold on. Please pray for me as I try to open this again. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Ram.
We can't hear.
Hare Krishna. Namashreshtam manamapi shachiputra matra sarupam Shri Rupam tasya grajam urupari maturim gushtavatim Radha kundam girivaramoho radhika madhavasham Prapto yasya prakritikriya Shri Gurum tamnadosmi Hey Guru Gyanadadina Bando Swarandadata Kurunaika Sindo Vrindavana Sinahita Avatar Prasida Radha Pranaya Pracharo Hey Dina Bando Kurunaika Sindo Kuru Prasada Mai Mandamudhe Vaksha Paradhe Bahupapagani Pada Padmes Tumatish. The violin is sublime. I bow down to the beautiful lotus feet of my spiritual master, by whose causeless mercy I have obtained the supreme holy name, the divine mantra, the service of the son of Shachi Mata, the association of Srila Swarup Damodar, Rupa Goswami, and his older brother Sanatana Goswami, the supreme abode of Mathura, the blissful abode of Vrindavan, the divine Radha Kunda and Govardhan Hill, and the desire within my heart for the loving service of Shri Radhika and Madhava in Vrindavan. O spiritual master, O giver of divine wisdom, O friend of the fallen, you are the giver of your own bliss, and you are the only ocean of mercy. Although dwelling in Vrindavan, you have descended for the welfare of fallen souls like myself, and you are preaching the divine love of Radha for Krishna. Please be kind upon me. O friend of the lowly, O Gurudev, you are the only ocean of mercy. I am a dull fool and have committed hundreds and thousands of offenses. I have fallen into a dense myriad of sins. Therefore grace me with your mercy, so that my mind may be fixed on your lotus feet and on Shri Krishna. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain pure devotional service. I bow to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. Our only wish is to have our consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens our darkened eyes and fills our hearts with transcendental knowledge. He is our Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates. By him stress is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and the Lord and master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread all over the 3 worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma. Bandon vui savadana mate. Jahara prasade bai bhavatu riya jaya. Krishna prapti hoy ja hoy te. Guru mukha padma vakya chitte koriya oikya. sarva asha. Jai prasade pure sarva asha. Jame jame Prabhu se Chakudan dilo je Jame jame Prabhu se Yagyan vere prakashita Yagyan vere prakashita Prema bhakti jaha hoite abhija vinasa jate Prema bhakti jaha hoite abhija vinasa jate Vede gai jahara charita Vede gai jahara charita Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu Lokana Lokera Jivana Lokana Lokera Jivana Ha ha Prabhu Kora Doya Deha Mure Pada Chaya Ha ha Prabhu Kora Doya Deha Mure Pada Chaya Ebe Jash Kushu Tribhuvana Ebe Jash Kushu Tribhuvana Ha ha Prabhu Koro Doya Deho Mune Pada Chaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Rishatarine Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bolo! Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nam bhajan, go, go, go. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Govinda Jai Jai, Gopala Jai Jai. Govinda Jai Jai, Gopala Jai Jai. Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jai Jai. Radha Ramana Hari. Govinda Jai Jai. Jai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Jai Gaur Hari Bol. Nariya Godhume Nityananda Mahajan. Bhakti Ache Naam Hata Jive Rakaran. Sharavan Jan Hai, Sharavan Jan Hai. Prabhu Rak Nai Pai Magiye Bika. Bolo Krishna, Bajo Krishna, Koro Krishna Shika. Aparashina Hoy Laha Krishna Nam. Krishna Mata, Krishna Pita, Krishna Dhana Pran. Krishna Mata, Krishna Pita, Krishna Dhana Pran. Krishna Samsara Koro Chare Anacha. Jive Doya Krishna Nam, Sarva Dharma Sar. Nariya Godhume Nityananda Mahajan. Nariya Godhume Nityananda Mahajan. Jai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol,
Hari Bol.
Hari Bol, Jai Gaur Hari Bol. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki
Jai.
Shri Harinam Mahamantra Ki
Jai.
Shri Harinam Prabhu Ki
Jai.
Gaura Premanande
Shri Hari Bol.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol,
Hari Bol.
Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Jai Jayom Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivrajagacharya Stotra Shishimat Abhay Charana Ravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Stotra Shishimat Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sagaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gokupina Shyamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Sri Mayapur Navadip Dham Ki Sri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jamuna Devi Ganga Devi Ki Samba Veta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Sri Vaman Dwadashi Maha Mahotsav Ki. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
Gaura Premanande Haribo.
Haribo.
And now let's see what announcements we have.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, can I say something? This is
Yes.
Shata. Today is Bhaktin Barsha's birthday.
Vanchakalpatrubhyascha kripasindubhya evacha patitam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Bhaktin Varsha is one of those great souls that I was talking about earlier, who, because of Krishna's inspiration in the heart, walked in the temple and was so inspired by the holy name, by the deities, by the atmosphere, and by Apara Gaurangi, that she just gave her whole life to Krishna consciousness. And so, Bhaktin Barsha, we're so happy to see you happy and engaged in Krishna consciousness. And my prayer is that Lord Chaitanya will make a special place for you eternally in his Sankirtan movement, so that you can fulfill the Abhishtadoham, your heart's desire, to just serve and be with the devotees and chant the holy name eternally without any more concern for the dark material world. May it be so on your birthday. Hare Krishna. Gaur Premanande Haribo.
Thank you so much, Maharaj, for your time.
Krishna. Do you want to say anything, Bhaktin Varsha?
Thank you. Thank you to all devotees of ISV, and thank you, Guru Maharaj. I'm really glad.
Somehow we can barely hear you. I think the microphone might be distant or something.
Hare Krishna.
Ah, there
Maharaj.
it is. Yes.
Yeah, I'm really grateful and thankful to all the devotees of ISV, and to you and Nirukula Gurma, and I don't know what to say. Yeah, you guys have taken me under your shelter, and that's the greatest thing that could ever happen to me. So thank you so much.
Haribol.
I hope I can hear you all.
Hare Krishna. That was beautiful. Thank you very much. Malini, what announcements do you have? You are SKP.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, we are getting ready for the Bhadra Purnima Day, which is September 1st here at ISV in North America, but it is on September 2nd in India. And the Yajna, the Mahayajna that we are performing, the Bhadradana Yajna, is on September 2nd India time, which would be September 1st evening, North America, that is 7 p.m. onwards. I was just recently, Prabhu, I was picking some tomatoes in my garden, and I was trying to pick, but there were too many that I could not pick all of them, and some of them were actually rotting also. And then I was just thinking, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that I am the only gardener, how many places can I go? How many fruits can I distribute? I was just trying to relate to how Mahaprabhu felt in terms of distributing the fruits of love of God.
Wow.
And I was just thinking that this is a great opportunity for all of us to help Śrī Caitanya Mahaprabhu distribute those fruits in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam or any kind of books. So I was just reflecting the golden opportunity.
I like that a lot, Malini. Is that there's that overwhelming feeling, the more we distribute, the more we want to distribute. And there's only so many ways you can expand yourself until you're going 24 hours a day and there's nothing else happening. And then Krishna, I mean, it's just exactly what you described is so perfect, that analogy. It just comes so fast. And I think all the devotees that are involved in this Bhadra Purnima are experiencing that ecstasy, that fever of you know, they're doing more and more and more. As they do more, then the field increases and Lord Chaitanya's facility increases. And then what can you do but just cry to Krishna, please give me more hands, more legs, fewer hours to sleep and things like that, right?
Yes, Prabhu.
That's really the samadhi of the Sankirtan movement. That's how it's supposed to run all the time. There's always that feeling that we're going for the next big thing. And before you know it, you just run out the clock on the field of this lifetime, just not even knowing. The other day, Jai Madhava Prabhu got on the call for our Bhakti Sadhana on-call. I think it was at night. No, it was the morning. It was yesterday, the spiritual fitness call. And he goes, "Good evening, everybody." It was afternoon. And I could tell, like, he's so absorbed at 24 hours a day, he doesn't know if it's day or night, practically. The plight of the Sankirtan devotee. Go ahead, Malini, please.
True, with all the Swamis that you're bringing on for the calls that we're having for Bhadra Purnima, it is actually increasing the desire amongst the devotees to give more and more. And I've been receiving some messages saying that, oh, this person was really inspired by the talk that His Holiness Indradumna Maharaj gave, and this person wants to sponsor a set of Bhagavatam. And I received a message from Rupa Manjari Mataji's sister, Rukmini. And she actually said that she has posted a message on her Facebook page saying that anybody who would like to have a Srimad Bhagavatam, let me know and I can sponsor for you. And first come, first serve. And then some of her friend wanted it, and then she sent. And then she said, I am getting more messages now saying that this person wants it, that person wants it. And then she said the message to us saying that, can ISV devotees send it? And then we said yes. So devotees are trying different ways on how they can distribute. And even though they never distributed books before, they are now actually distributing Bhagavatam sets, which is amazing.
You know, I was thinking about how in the Kali Yuga, it's a crazy age. Everyone goes crazy. So you either go crazy in the material energy or go crazy for Lord Chaitanya. There's no in between in this age. So it's best to catch the fever and go mad for distribution. It's really good report, Malini. Thank you.
There's one more thing is that this is the last weekend where we can dispatch sets within the Bay Area. So Venudhari Prabhu, he cannot go because he just had a baby 2 days ago. But Tarun Prabhu and his team, under the direction of Venudhari Prabhu, they are dispatching 50 Bhagavatam sets today. So we already have orders, and that is within the area. So they're going to do 50 doors and they're going to place the books today.
Malini, can't that baby drive?
We should ask her.
Baby can drive and everyone else can jump out and distribute the sets. We got to pick up the pace here at ISV. Babies, no excuse. Just go ahead.
Baby read the whole Bhagavatam, Prabhu, before she came out. So
you read the Bhagavatam, just teach her how to drive. You could drive her around. That'll definitely get on the news.
Yes, we should
Hare
have
Krishna.
Jahnavi driving. Prabhu, and one more thing is that for the yajna, we have promised the devotees that whoever is distributed, sponsored, given as a gift, or participated in this yajna by giving referrals, they all will be included. We just wanted to announce that we need all those names by Sunday afternoon, because we have to prepare a list, and that list actually will be offered in the yajna. So we just wanted to let devotees know that if you send the names after Sunday night, we may not be able to accommodate. So that's why we're requesting to send it by Sunday afternoon.
Where are they supposed to send it? Is there a special place to collect all the names?
There is a Google form already shared with all the in the groups, as well as an email also has been sent. So they can fill out that form and we will take care of those names.
Thank you very much.
And
I had a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Mataji.
Sorry. I had sponsored a set. I want to put my dad's name, who passed away recently. Is that a good idea?
Yes.
Instead of
In fact, Caitanya-Caritāmṛta brought up this excellent idea during his talk a couple days ago. Or maybe it was yesterday morning. Yes, and he said for all those out there, he said the son is called Putra, the daughter is called Putri. And tra means male, female, male, means to save your descendants, including your parents, from hell, from gliding down. So he said it's a good idea to give away a set of Bhagavatams on Bhadra Purnima for your father, mother, forefathers, because that'll be the greatest benediction. Instead of going to hell, they'll go back to Godhead. Hare Krishna. Good idea.
So much,
it's a very good idea.
So every year I can sponsor for many generations.
I think that we should start an official registry for those who want to do one for their Shraddha ceremony for their parents every year. And we'll get that about 1 million people on that registry. And then every year we'll do at least 1 million Bhagavatams just from the Shraddha. So that should be an offshoot, because it came from the transcendental mind of and the speech of Srila Jayapataka Maharaj. It will manifest without a doubt. Hare Krishna.
So today we will be having our Sankirtan calling party, and we have been getting an overload of messages from different devotees. So we're going to follow up with all of them and try to help them to get a Bhagavatam set for themselves or for their friends or relatives like that, Prabhu. So we're continuing our calling party today. And it feels like, I don't know for everybody else, but when there's a wedding at home, everybody is engaged in some or the other thing. And at least 2 days before the wedding, it's the most busiest time. And it feels like that just before Bhadra Purnima, that there are so many things that are going on. It feels like it's some kind of a festival, and devotees are all engaged in different services.
It's Bhadra fever. It's sweeping the globe. And people are catching it everywhere, and they're just going crazy for this. It's perfect. It's perfectly aligned. The stars are all in order, and this is a way to elevate the whole world by doing Bhagavatam sets. Those talks by the great souls that came on these calls have been amazing, amazingly inspiring. So thank you very much, Malini, for putting your life and soul into this and organizing everything, and all the other leaders. Gopal Champu Prabhu, how are things going over there near Panstalian? Are you in your new ashram?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Guru Maharaj, please, and on basis. Yeah, so we're actually in the process of moving things over. So we'll be completely moved in by next week.
Fantastic. Well, please give my best to everyone in Atlanta, Georgia. Tell them I think they look great. I think that Colonel Sanders was from there. I met him at the airport, and his nephew took a book, I think at Caitanya-Caritāmṛta. So thank you for following up with all the people of Atlanta and inundating that place with transcendental literature and the holy names. Hare Krishna. My best to everybody in the ashram. Here you're getting some applause. Give him a hand. Hare Krishna.
One more thing is that just reminding the devotees that this evening, 5 p.m. Pacific, we have a call with His Holiness Devamrit Swami Maharaj and His Grace Vaisesika Prabhu for Bhadra campaign. And tomorrow morning, 7 a.m., again, we have a call with His Grace Vaisesika Prabhu and His Grace Vavas Prabhu for Bhadra campaign.
Okay. We've also put some messages out to some other big sadhus and waiting to hear back from them, so I won't say anything until I hear back from them. But hopefully, anyway, we're doing our best. Okay.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you very much. Any other announcements?
Dhanyavad Pranam, Guru Maharaj. I had one quick question.
Yes.
We are first time doing book distribution as part of the Chicago team, and we are going tomorrow to hand off 4 books to entrepreneur businessman. He's a Gujarati, but he's initiated to a certain extent in Krishna philosophy, but not a practitioner. So my humble question to you is, what's the best Srimad Bhagavatam verse I should recite to him while we hand over so that he kind of gets some, attraction towards it?
Prabhupada told one of his disciples, female disciple, he asked her what she was saying to people when she was selling the books, and especially Bhagavatam. And she told him, and then he said, you can tell them this verse, Krishne swadamo bhagate dharmaganadi bisaha kalo nashta darshamesha purar narko danodita. This Bhagavatam is as brilliant as the sun and has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna for his own abode, accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc. Persons who have lost their vision due to the darkness in this age of Kali will derive light from this Purana. So he said, you tell them that. So we used to, after we heard Prabhupada's instruction, then that's what we tell people when we hand over the book. And we use other verses too. So you can use that verse. It comes right out of Prabhupada's lotus mouth. He suggested it. So that's the best verse. Also, another verse is number 2 verse, Dharma projita kaitavo tara paramo nirmatsaranam satam. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated. Bhagavat Purana propounds the highest truth, which is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam compiled by the great sage Srila Vyasadeva is sufficient for God realization. What is there need for any other literature? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, he becomes attached to the Supreme Lord. So that's a mantra I recommend everybody, those two, everyone memorize. And then when you're distributing books, you can just say that verse. When you tell them, just hand them the book and say that. This completely rejects all religious activities that are materially motivated and propounds the highest truth, which is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all, etc. And they'll take it. And then they'll say how much. And once they say how much, Gopal Champu, what do you tell them? How much should I give?
Well, because we're monks, we don't sell them like in a bookstore. You see, each book would cost about $50, so at least $700 for the set. But we're doing a special for only $299. Please take it.
Haribol. And
thank you, Guru.
They can give a little tip for the band too. You want to give a little tip for the band? Okay, good one. Who else was there? Somebody else was saying. Oh, that was Prabir. Okay, yes, you're welcome, Prabir.
I was just saying.
Good work.
Thank you so much, Guru Maharaj.
This is a sacred mission you're on, delivering these books to the CEO. Very good. Very well done.
Well, I'm just a neophyte trying to follow all of you elevated Vaishnava footsteps in a little way.
That is the correct mantra.
In this case, the donor actually already paid $1,100 for 4 Bhagavatam. So we just.
So now ask him if he wants to give a tip for the band. Hare Krishna. Any other things? Now we get to sing Bhaktivinoda Thakur's most joyful song, the most joyful song ever written in the history of the universe. Prasad Seva, especially when it's on Dwadashi. Baire. Sharira Dvijaja Jodindriya Aheka Jibe Pele Bishaya Shagore Dharma Jiti Bayati Loba Moisudurmati Take Jeta Katita Shanshare Krishna Boro Doyamoy Kori Bari Chihwaja Swaprasadam Shayana Vrata Pao Radha Krishna Guna Gao Preme Nako Śrī Caitanya-Caritāmṛta Paire Ekadina Shanti Pure Prabhu Advaita Ragare Due Prabhu Bojani Boshila Shakuri Aswadana Prabhu Bole Bhakadana Esha Krishna Ashwadila Heno Shakashwadane Krishna Prema Aise Mane She Preme Koro Ashwadam Jadda Buddhi Parihari Prasara Bhojana Kori Hari Hari Bolo Sarvajan Hari Hari Bolo Sarvajan Mahapshare Govinde Nama Brahmani Vaishnave Sopa Punya Vatam Brahmachan Shvaso Nanajayate Prasade Sarva Dukkanam Haniraso Pajayate Prasanna Chetaso Yashu Bhukti Parya Vatrishtate Tayopa Bhukta Sradhantha Vasalankara Charchitaha Uchishta Bojino Dasat Savamayam Jayemahi Bhagavad Shri Mahaprasad Ki. Did I see you have those nectar verses sitting right there?
Yes.
Barhapidam. Is that too high? Barhapidam. Barhapidam Natavaravapu Karnayo Karnikaram Bibradvasa Kanaka Kapisham Vaijayantim Chamalam Randran Venur Adara Sudaya Punayan Goparinda Vrindaranyam Swapada Ramanam Parashakita Kirti Tavakatam Ritam Tapta Jivanam Kabiriritam Kalmashapaham Shravanam Mangalam Srimadattatam Bhuvi Granantiye Puridajana. Krishna Kirtana Dana Nartana Kala Pato Jani Brajita Shadbhakta Valihangsa Chakra Madhupa Shreni Vihara Spadam nirvahatu me jiva marupagane Śrī Caitanya Nidhedavalasal Līlā Sudha Swaduni Helam tu Nita Kedaya Vishadaya Pronila Damodaya Shamyat Chastra Vivadaya Rasadaya Chitta-Puto-Madaya Shashva-Bhakti-Vinodaya Samadaya Madhurya-Madhyadaya Śrī Caitanya-Daya Nidhita-Vadaya One more time. Śrī Caitanya-Daya Nidhita-Vadaya Bhuyaramando Daya Gaur Premanande Nitai Gaura Haribo Haribo Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Chickpea sabji and pancakes for everybody. Hare Krishna. Vanchakalpatarishya Kripasinnavevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Please keep the transcendental vibration going. We're inching towards our goal with the Bhagavatams. Please do huge. Put your whole life and soul into it and go back home, back to Godhead. Hare Krishna.
Hari Hari.
Hari Hari.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.